The slap came so fast Emma didn't even see Marcus's hand move. "You embarrassed me in there," Marcus hissed, his handsome face twisted into something ugly and cruel. At 6'2", with his expensive suit and perfectly styled dark hair, he looked every bit the successful investment banker he claimed to be. Laughing at that waiter's joke like some desperate... "He was just being friendly," Emma whispered, touching her burning cheek with trembling fingers. She could already feel it swelling. 28 years old, and she'd let herself become this. A woman who whispered apologies in parking lots while her boyfriend's rage turned her skin purple. Friendly. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. He stepped closer, backing her against the brick wall of the restaurant. "You think I don't see what you're doing? Flirting with every man who looks at you." "I wasn't... Don't lie to me." His voice rose to a shout that echoed off the surrounding buildings. A couple walking to their car 50 feet away glanced over, then quickly looked away. Nobody ever wanted to get involved. "You know what happens when you lie to me, Emma. Or do you need another reminder? I'll put you in the hospital again." The hospital, 3 months ago. A fall down the stairs that had left her with 2 broken ribs and a concussion. The emergency room doctor had looked at her with knowing, sympathetic eyes, but hadn't pushed when Emma stuck to Marcus's rehearsed story. Emma's phone buzzed in her purse, the Uber she'd secretly ordered while Marcus was in the restaurant bathroom. Her escape plan, weak as it was. "I'm leaving," she said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. Her knees were shaking, her heart hammering against her ribs, but she forced herself to stand straight. "I called a car. This is over, Marcus." For a moment, he just stared at her. Then his mouth curved into that smile, the one that had charmed her in the beginning, before she'd learned what it really meant. It meant he was about to make her regret everything. "You're not going anywhere." His hand shot out and grabbed her wrist, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. He dragged her away from the wall, toward his black BMW parked in the shadows. "Get in the car, Emma. Now." "No." The word came out stronger than she felt. She tried to twist away, but his grip tightened until she cried out, "Let go of me." "You don't tell me no." Marcus's other hand reached into his pocket, pulling out his key fob. The BMW's lights flashed as it unlocked. "You're mine, and you'll do what I believe the lady said no." The voice came from behind them, low, calm, and carrying an edge of something that made the hair on the back of Emma's neck stand up. Not fear, exactly. Something else. Something dangerous. Marcus spun around, still gripping Emma's wrist. "Mind your own business, pal. This is between me and my girlfriend." Emma turned too, and her breath caught. The man standing 10 feet away looked like he'd stepped out of a different world entirely. Tall and broad-shouldered, probably in his mid-30s, with dark hair pushed back from a face that was all hard angles and sharp edges. He wore a charcoal suit that fit him like it had been custom-made, which it probably had been, judging by the quality. But it was his eyes that made her heart skip a beat. Ice blue and absolutely still, like a frozen lake, hiding unfathomable depths beneath. "I don't think she's your girlfriend anymore," the stranger said, taking a step closer. "Sounds like she just broke up with you." Marcus's hand tightened on Emma's wrist until she whimpered. "And I said it's none of your concern. Walk away before you regret it." The stranger's gaze dropped to where Marcus was holding Emma. Something shifted in his expression. A flash of cold fury that was there and gone in an instant. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, which somehow made it more terrifying. "Let her go." "Or what?" Marcus pulled Emma closer, using her as a shield. She could smell the whiskey on his breath, feel the tremor of rage in his body. "You'll what, tough guy?" "You have any idea who I am? My father is—" "I don't care if your father is the governor of New York," the stranger interrupted. His eyes never left Marcus's face. "You have 3 seconds to release her." Marcus laughed, but it sounded forced. "Is that a threat? You're threatening me? I could have you arrested for—" "1." The single word cut through Marcus's bluster like a knife. You can't be serious. Do you know what I could do to you? I have lawyers. I have connections. Too. Emma felt Marcus's hand start to sweat against her skin. His grip loosened just slightly, uncertainty creeping into his posture. There was something about this stranger that radiated absolute certainty, absolute control, like a man who'd made and followed through on promises far worse than counting to 3. This is insane, Marcus blustered. But he was already backing up, pulling Emma with him toward his car. You're insane. Emma, get in the car. We're leaving. The stranger moved. Emma barely registered the speed of it. One moment he was 10 feet away, the next he was right there, his hand clamped around Marcus's forearm like a vice. Marcus yelped, actually yelped, and his fingers released Emma's wrist instantly. I said 3, but I'm not a patient man, the stranger said quietly. He twisted Marcus's arm with precise, controlled force, spinning him away from Emma and slamming him face first against the BMW's hood. Marcus cried out, but the stranger pressed down harder, keeping him pinned. Now apologize to the lady. I'll have you arrested. This is assault. I'll sue you for everything. The stranger leaned down, his mouth next to Marcus's ear. Emma couldn't hear what he whispered, but whatever it was made Marcus go absolutely still. The color drained from his face, leaving him pale and suddenly looking much younger, much weaker. I'm sorry, Marcus gasped out. Emma, I'm sorry. The stranger held him there a moment longer, then released him with a little shove. Marcus stumbled, catching himself against the car. He looked back once, his eyes wide with genuine fear, then scrambled into the driver's seat. The BMW's engine roared to life, and he peeled out of the parking lot so fast his tires squealed. Silence fell over the parking lot. Emma stood there, rubbing her wrist, her whole body shaking with adrenaline and shock, and something else she couldn't quite name. The stranger turned to face her, and his expression had transformed completely. The cold menace was gone, replaced by something warmer, concerned. Are you all right? He asked, his voice gentle now. Emma opened her mouth but couldn't seem to make words come out. She just stared at him, at this man who'd appeared out of nowhere, like some kind of avenging angel in an expensive suit. You're in shock, he said, taking a careful step toward her. Not crowding her space, she noticed, giving her room to breathe. Let me help you. Did you call for a car? Yes, an Uber. It should be here. She fumbled for her phone with trembling hands, nearly dropping it. The stranger reached out and steadied her hand with his, and the touch sent a jolt through her entire body. His hands were warm, strong, but surprisingly gentle. What's the driver's name? She blinked at her phone screen, trying to focus. Alexander. Black Mercedes SUV. A smile ghosted across his lips, the first real expression she'd seen from him. That would be me. Emma's head snapped up. What? He released her hand and pulled out his own phone, showing her the Uber driver app. Sure enough, there was her pickup request, her destination, her apartment across town, and his 5-star rating with over 3,000 completed trips. You're my Uber driver? She said, her voice coming out higher than usual. I am tonight. He pocketed his phone and gestured toward a sleek black Mercedes SUV parked near the restaurant entrance. Though I have to say, this is a first. Usually I don't have to rescue my passengers before they even get in the car. Despite everything, the fear, the pain, the absolute insanity of the last 5 minutes, Emma felt a laugh bubble up in her throat. It came out slightly hysterical, and once she started, she couldn't seem to stop. Tears pricked at her eyes, and she didn't know if she was laughing or crying, or both. Hey. The stranger moved closer, his hand hovering near her shoulder, but not quite touching. You're safe now. He's gone. I know, Emma wiped at her eyes, mascara probably streaking down her face. I'm sorry, this is just so bizarre. You're really an Uber driver? You look like you should be driving something much more expensive than... Well, okay, that's a nice car, but you know what I mean. His mouth quirked. It's a side interest. Come on, let's get you somewhere safe. He led her to the Mercedes, opening the back door for her, but Emma hesitated. Actually, would you mind if I sat up front? I know that's probably weird, but I don't want to be alone right now. Something shifted in his expression. A flash of understanding, of approval. Not weird at all. He closed the back door and opened the passenger side instead, waiting until she was settled before walking around to the driver's seat. The interior of the car smelled like leather and something else, something expensive and masculine that made her feel strangely safe. As he pulled out of the parking lot, Emma caught sight of her reflection in the side mirror. Her cheek was swelling, starting to purple, and her hair was a mess. She looked exactly like what she was. A woman who'd just escaped something terrible. "We should get ice on that," the stranger, Alexander, said, noticing her gaze. "There's a convenience store a few blocks from here." "I'm fine," Emma said automatically, then winced at how unconvincing she sounded. "You're not fine." His voice was firm but not unkind. "And that's okay. You don't have to be fine right now." For some reason, those words broke something loose inside her. Emma felt tears start to roll down her cheeks, hot and fast and unstoppable. She turned her face toward the window, embarrassed, but Alexander simply reached over and opened the center console, pulling out a box of tissues. "Take your time," he said quietly. They drove in silence for a few minutes, Emma crying quietly while Alexander navigated the evening traffic with easy competence. When they pulled into the convenience store parking lot, he turned to her. "I'm going to get ice and some other supplies. Will you be all right here for a moment? I'll lock the doors." Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. He studied her face for a second longer, as if assessing whether to believe her, then got out. True to his word, she heard the locks click into place. Through the store's large windows, she watched him move through the aisles. Even in a mundane convenience store, he commanded attention. The clerk straightened up when he approached the counter. Another customer moved aside to let him pass. He had that quality, the kind of presence that made people instinctively defer. Who was this man? He returned a few minutes later with a plastic bag full of supplies. Ice packs, bottled water, pain relievers, antiseptic wipes. When he slid back into the driver's seat, he didn't start the car. Instead, he pulled out one of the ice packs, cracked it to activate the cold, and wrapped it in a clean cloth. "May I?" he asked, holding it up. Emma nodded, and he gently pressed it against her swollen cheek. His other hand came up to cradle the side of her head, keeping her steady. They were close now, close enough that she could see the darker ring around his blue irises, the faint scar above his left eyebrow. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything. I don't even know your name, your real name." "Alexander is my real name," he said. "Alexander Russo." "I'm Emma Holland." "Emma." He said her name like he was tasting it, committing it to memory. "Beautiful name." She felt heat rise in her face that had nothing to do with the injury. "You really didn't have to do all this. The ice, the supplies. You're an Uber driver, not a—" "I'm not just an Uber driver," Alexander interrupted gently. He lowered the ice pack, his eyes searching hers. "But that's a conversation for later. Right now, I need to know something. Where am I really taking you tonight?" Emma blinked. "My apartment. The address I put in the app." "Is that where you feel safe?" The question caught her off guard. She opened her mouth to say yes, then stopped. Her apartment. The place Marcus had a key to. The place he'd shown up at dozens of times. Unannounced. Possessive. Controlling. "He has a key," she admitted quietly. "To my place. I should have taken it back, but he always made it seem like I was being paranoid. Like I was the problem." Alexander's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Then we're not taking you there." "But I don't have anywhere else to—" "Do you trust me, Emma?" It was a crazy question. She'd known this man for all of 20 minutes. He was a stranger who'd happened to be her Uber driver, who'd intervened in a situation that could have ended very badly. She knew nothing about him except that he was dangerous and protective, and looking at her right now like she mattered. "Yes," she heard herself say. I don't know why, but yes. Alexander nodded, something like satisfaction crossing his features. He started the car and pulled back onto the road, but instead of heading toward her neighborhood, he took a different route entirely. Where are we going? Emma asked, but she felt no fear. Only curiosity and a strange growing sense of anticipation. Somewhere safe, Alexander said. Somewhere he'll never find you. They drove through the city as evening deepened into night, the lights of Manhattan glittering like fallen stars. Alexander took them to a part of town Emma rarely visited, the financial district, where luxury high-rises competed for space in the skyline. He pulled into an underground parking garage, using a key card to access it, and parked in a spot marked Reserved Penthouse. You live in a penthouse, Emma said flatly, and you drive Uber. Alexander smiled, a real smile this time, and it transformed his entire face. He looked younger, less dangerous, though the edge never completely left his eyes. I told you, it's a side interest, a way to observe the city, meet people I wouldn't normally meet. People like me. People exactly like you. He came around and opened her door, offering his hand. Emma took it and let him help her out of the car. His hand was warm and strong, and he didn't let go as he led her to a private elevator. It required both a key card and a fingerprint scan. This is either very safe or very creepy, Emma said, eyeing all the security measures. Very safe, Alexander assured her. I promise you, Emma, you're safe with me. The elevator rose smoothly, opening directly into a sprawling penthouse apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city. The furnishings were modern and expensive, but somehow not cold. There were books on shelves, art on the walls that looked collected rather than decorated, a lived-in quality beneath the obvious wealth. Make yourself comfortable, Alexander said, shrugging out of his suit jacket and draping it over a chair. He rolled up his sleeves, revealing strong forearms. Are you hungry? When's the last time you ate? Emma realized she couldn't remember. Lunch, maybe? She'd been too nervous about dinner with Marcus to eat much. I'm not sure. Then I'm making you something. He moved toward the open kitchen, surprisingly at ease. Sit. Put your feet up. You've had a hell of a night. Emma sank onto the leather couch, still holding the ice pack to her face. She watched Alexander move around the kitchen with practiced efficiency, pulling out ingredients, heating a pan. You cook? My mother insisted, he said, cracking eggs into a bowl. Said no son of hers would be helpless in a kitchen. Smart woman. She was. A shadow crossed his face, quickly hidden. She passed away 5 years ago. I'm sorry. Alexander glanced over at her, his expression softening. Thank you. She would have liked you. She always appreciated bravery. Bravery? Emma laughed bitterly. I let that man hit me, control me, terrify me for months. That's not brave. You left him. Alexander's voice was firm, certain. You called for a car. You stood up to him even though you were afraid. That's the definition of bravery, Emma. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. Tears pricked at her eyes again. She blinked them back, watching as Alexander plated a perfect omelet with toast and fresh fruit. He brought it over to her along with silverware and a cloth napkin. Eat, he commanded gently. You need your strength. The food was delicious, and Emma found herself eating faster than was probably polite. Alexander settled into the chair across from her, a glass of whiskey in his hand, just watching her with those intense blue eyes. Why are you doing this? Emma asked between bites. Really, you could have just driven me home and collected your fare. You didn't have to get involved. Alexander was quiet for a long moment, swirling the whiskey in his glass. When I was 12 years old, I watched my father hit my mother, he said finally. Just once. He was drunk, angry about something at work. He backhanded her across the face in our kitchen. Emma stopped eating, her throat tight. My mother stood there for a moment, touching her cheek, just like you were doing in that parking lot. Then she looked at me and my younger sister, and she told us to pack our things. We left that night and never went back. She divorced him, raised us alone, worked 2 jobs to keep us fed and clothed. What happened to your father?" Alexander's smile was cold. "He died alone in a cheap apartment 10 years later. Drank himself to death. Nobody came to his funeral except the priest. I'm sorry. Don't be. He made his choices." Alexander leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "My mother made hers too. She chose to leave, to protect herself and her children. She chose strength over convenience, dignity over false peace. You made the same choice tonight, Emma. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let you face the consequences alone." Emma set down her fork, her appetite suddenly gone. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." He stood, moving to the windows, looking out over the glittering city. "I know you're stronger than you think. I know you deserve better than what that coward gave you. And I know—" He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I know that sometimes people come into our lives at exactly the right moment. Like an Uber driver who's actually a mysterious penthouse-dwelling man of mystery?" Alexander laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Something like that." Emma studied his profile against the city lights. There was something else here, something he wasn't saying. The expensive apartment, the way he'd handled Marcus with such casual, controlled violence, the security measures, that moment when he'd whispered something that had terrified Marcus more than physical threats. "What do you do, Alexander?" she asked quietly. "Really, not the Uber thing. What do you actually do?" He turned to face her, and the city lights behind him cast his face into shadow. "I run a family business," he said carefully. "Import-export, primarily. Real estate. Various investments." It was a non-answer, and they both knew it. "And the Uber driving? Like I said, a way to observe the city, see how people really live. Sometimes." He moved back toward her, settling on the couch beside her this time. Close, but not crowding. "Sometimes you meet someone who reminds you why certain things matter, why protecting people matters." Emma's heart was beating faster now, and not from fear. Alexander's proximity was doing things to her pulse that should probably worry her. She'd just escaped an abusive relationship. She should be running from any man who showed interest. But there was something different about Alexander. Something that made her feel protected rather than possessed. "You're dangerous," she said. Not a question. "Yes, but not to me. Never to you." The certainty in his voice sent shivers down her spine. Emma reached up and touched her swollen cheek, wincing slightly. The ice had helped, but it still throbbed. "What did you whisper to Marcus? In the parking lot?" He looked absolutely terrified. Alexander's expression went cold again, dangerous. "I told him that if he ever came near you again, if he even thought about you, I would know. And I would make sure he regretted being born." "And he believed you." "Men like Marcus are good at spotting predators," Alexander said quietly. "They're predators themselves, just weaker ones. They choose victims who won't fight back, who've been taught to be polite and accommodating. But when they meet someone who's actually dangerous," he shrugged, "they recognize the difference between what they are and what I am. And what are you? Someone you don't have to be afraid of." Alexander lifted his hand slowly, telegraphing the movement, and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. His fingers lingered on her jaw, careful to avoid her injury. "Someone who's going to make sure you're safe, Emma. For as long as you'll let me." The moment stretched between them, charged with something electric and dangerous and absolutely inevitable. Emma knew she should pull away, should thank him and call a different car, and go. Somewhere. Anywhere. She should definitely not be leaning into his touch, should not be looking at his mouth, should not be feeling this pull toward a man who was clearly more complicated and dangerous than anyone she'd ever met. But she didn't pull away. "Stay tonight," Alexander said, his voice low. "The guest room is yours. Tomorrow we'll figure out how to handle Marcus, how to get your things from your apartment safely, whatever you need. But tonight, just rest. Be safe." Emma nodded slowly. Okay. He stood, offering his hand again, and led her down a hallway to a spacious bedroom with its own ensuite bathroom. Everything was perfectly appointed. Fresh towels, unopened toiletries, even a set of comfortable clothes laid out on the bed. You keep a full guest room stocked? Emma asked. My sister visits sometimes, Alexander said with a slight smile. She's about your size. Help yourself to whatever you need. If you need anything at all, I'm just down the hall. The door locks from the inside, he added, as if reading her mind. You're in complete control of your space here. Thank you, Alexander, for everything. He paused in the doorway, looking back at her. In the soft light of the bedroom, he looked less dangerous and more human. Approachable. Get some rest, Emma. Tomorrow's a new beginning. After he left, Emma explored the bathroom, finding luxury products and a shower with water pressure that felt like heaven. She stood under the hot spray for a long time, washing away the evening, the fear, Marcus's touch. When she finally emerged, she found the clothes Alexander's sister had left. Soft sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt that smelled like expensive laundry detergent. She should have fallen asleep immediately. The bed was incredibly comfortable, the room was quiet and dark, and she was exhausted. But instead, Emma lay there staring at the ceiling. Her mind racing. What was she doing? She'd let a complete stranger, an admittedly dangerous stranger, bring her to his home. She'd trusted him on pure instinct. Was she being smart or phenomenally stupid? But then she thought about the way he'd stepped between her and Marcus without hesitation. The way he'd made her food and made sure she felt safe. The way he'd looked at her like she mattered, like she was someone worth protecting. Emma touched her swollen cheek gently. Tomorrow she'd have to face reality, dealing with Marcus, her apartment, her job, all of it. But tonight, for the first time in months, she felt safe. She must have eventually drifted off, because the next thing she knew, morning light was streaming through the windows. Emma sat up, momentarily disoriented, then remembered everything. She grabbed her phone from the nightstand and her stomach dropped. 17 missed calls from Marcus. 34 text messages. With shaking hands, she opened the messages. They started apologetic. Baby, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. Please call me back. Then angry. You can't just leave me like this. We need to talk now. And finally, threatening. You think you can just walk away? You think I don't know where you are? I'm coming to get you. The last message had been sent 20 minutes ago. Emma's door burst open and Alexander strode in, already dressed in another immaculate suit, his phone pressed to his ear. He was speaking in rapid Italian, his voice hard and commanding. He saw her face, saw her phone, and his expression went deadly calm. I'll call you back, he said into his phone, then crossed to her in 3 strides. Show me. She handed him the phone with trembling fingers. Alexander scrolled through the messages, his jaw tightening with each one. He doesn't know where you are, he said firmly. That's just manipulation, trying to scare you into responding. Classic abuser tactic. How do you know? Emma's voice came out small. Because if he knew where you were, he'd already be here trying to get to you. He's fishing. Alexander handed her phone back. Block his number, right now. But what if he... Emma. Alexander crouched down so they were eye level. You're under my protection now. He can send all the messages he wants. He can make all the threats he wants. He's never getting near you again. Do you understand? There was something absolute in his tone, in his eyes. A promise made of steel and ice. Emma found herself nodding. Good. Now block him. With Alexander watching, Emma blocked Marcus's number. The moment she did it, she felt simultaneously lighter and more terrified. She'd actually done it. Cut him off completely. Get dressed, Alexander said, standing. I'm making breakfast, and then we have some things to arrange. 30 minutes later, Emma emerged from the bedroom wearing borrowed clothes, designer jeans and a soft sweater from Alexander's sister's closet that fit perfectly. She found Alexander in the kitchen again, this time cooking pancakes while talking on his phone in rapid Italian again. He glanced up when she entered and his eyes swept over her, something appreciative flickering in their depths before he returned his attention to his call. He wrapped up the conversation and set the phone aside. "Coffee?" he offered. "God, yes." He poured her a cup from an expensive-looking espresso machine, added cream and sugar without asking, somehow knowing exactly how she took it, and slid it across the counter to her. "I have people going to your apartment right now," he said calmly, like this was a perfectly normal thing. "They'll pack up your belongings and bring everything here. If Marcus shows up, they'll handle it." Emma nearly choked on her coffee. "You have people? What kind of people?" "The kind who are very good at making sure women in difficult situations get out safely." Alexander flipped the pancakes expertly. "This isn't the first time I've helped someone leave an abusive partner, Emma. I have resources." "Resources," she repeated faintly. "Alexander, who are you really?" He was quiet for a moment, plating the pancakes, when he finally looked at her. His expression was serious. "I told you, I run a family business. My family has been in New York for 4 generations. We have influence, connections, the ability to help people who need it." "That's not exactly an answer. It's the answer I can give you right now." He brought the plates around and sat beside her at the counter. "What I can tell you is this. I'm someone who can keep you safe. I'm someone who has the means and the will to make sure Marcus never hurts you again. And I'm someone who would very much like to get to know you better, if you'll let me." Emma's heart skipped. "Get to know me better? Is that so surprising?" Alexander's mouth curved slightly. "You're beautiful, brave, and you made me laugh in a convenience store parking lot while having the worst night of your life." "I'd say that's worth getting to know." "I'm a mess," Emma said, but she couldn't help smiling a little. "I'm running from an abusive ex. I have no idea where I'm going to live, and I'm sitting in a strange man's penthouse eating pancakes. Best first date I've had in years," Alexander deadpanned. Emma laughed, actually laughed, and it felt like the first real breath she'd taken in months. "This is not a date. Not yet." His eyes held hers. "But it could be. When you're ready. No pressure, no expectations. Just a possibility." They ate breakfast together, and Emma found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in years. Alexander was easy to talk to once the danger and intensity faded. He asked about her work. She was a graphic designer for a small marketing firm, and actually seemed interested in her answers. He told her about his sister, who was apparently a lawyer in Boston, and about growing up in Little Italy. "My grandmother still lives there," he said, "in the same apartment my great-grandparents moved into when they came from Sicily. She's 92 and refuses to leave, even though I've offered to buy her any place she wants. She sounds stubborn?" "It runs in the family." Alexander's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then back at her. "My people are at your apartment. They need your keys." "I have them in my purse." Emma went to retrieve it from where she'd left it the night before. When she returned, Alexander was on the phone again, speaking that rapid Italian. She caught her own name and the word fidanzata. He held out his hand and she gave him the keys. He relayed some information into the phone, then hung up. "What does fidanzata mean?" Emma asked. Alexander smiled. "Girlfriend. I'm not your—" "I know, but it makes things simpler if my people think you are. They won't ask questions. They'll just do their job and keep you safe." It made a strange kind of sense. Emma nodded slowly. "So what do I do now? I can't just live here indefinitely." "Why not?" "Because I'm not your girlfriend," she said, exasperated. "I'm a stranger you picked up as an Uber passenger. A stranger I'm very interested in getting to know better." Alexander leaned against the counter, studying her. "Stay, Emma. At least until we make sure Marcus has gotten the message that you're done with him. A week, maybe 2. Let me help you figure out your next steps." "I can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking. I'm offering." He moved closer, not quite touching, but close enough that she could feel his warmth. "I don't make offers I don't mean, Emma. And I don't bring people into my home unless I trust them. Stay." There was something hypnotic about his voice, his presence. Emma knew she should say no. should thank him politely and find somewhere else to go. But the truth was, she didn't have anywhere else. Her parents had passed away years ago in a car accident. Her few friends had all drifted away under Marcus's controlling influence. She was alone. Except she wasn't. Not right now. 1 week, she heard herself say, and I'm paying you rent. Alexander's smile was slow and dangerous, and absolutely devastating. Deal, though I'm going to refuse your rent. Alexander, dinner with me, he said. Instead of rent, have dinner with me. Every night. Let me cook for you, or we'll go out. Just let me spend time with you. Emma's breath caught. That sounds like dating. Is that so terrible? She thought about it. Really thought about it. Yesterday she'd been trapped in a relationship that left bruises and made her afraid of her own shadow. Today she was standing in a penthouse with a dangerous, protective man who made her feel safe and wanted and seen. I don't know if I'm ready, she admitted quietly. Then we'll take it slow. Alexander reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch gentle. No pressure, Emma. Just dinner and conversation. Getting to know each other. That's all. Before she could respond, the intercom buzzed. Alexander went to answer it, speaking briefly, then turned back to her. Your things are here. The next hour was a blur of activity, as several men, all polite, professional, and somehow menacing in the same way Alexander was, brought up boxes and suitcases from Emma's apartment. They'd packed everything, her clothes, her books, her laptop, even the photos from her walls. It was surreal watching her entire life carried into Alexander's spare bedroom. One of the men, tall and broad with a shaved head and eyes that missed nothing, approached Alexander and spoke to him in low Italian. Alexander's expression darkened, but he nodded. After the men left, Alexander came to find Emma in the spare bedroom where she was unpacking. Marcus showed up at your apartment. Emma's hands stilled on the box she was opening. What happened? My people convinced him to leave. He won't be back. Convinced him how? Alexander was quiet for a moment. Emma, there are some things about how I operate that it's better you don't know the details of. What I can tell you is that Marcus was not hurt, but he was made to understand that you're under protection now. My protection, and that coming near you would be very unwise. Emma sank onto the bed, processing this. You're not just an import-export, are you? No. Are you... I don't even know how to ask this. Are you in the Mafia? Alexander sat beside her, his expression serious. My family has connections to certain organizations. We operate in gray areas sometimes, but we're not criminals, Emma. We don't hurt innocent people. We help those who need help. We conduct legitimate business. And yes, we have the kind of influence that makes people think twice about crossing us. That's the most careful non-answer I've ever heard. He smiled slightly. It's the truth. My great-grandfather came to this country with nothing. He built something, and my grandfather expanded it, and my father made his choices. But I've spent the last 10 years making this family legitimate. Legal. We still have the connections, the influence, but we use them to help people now. People like you. Emma looked at him, really looked at him. At the expensive suit and the controlled power and the eyes that had seen things she probably couldn't imagine. Why me, Alexander? Really, you could have just driven me home. Because when I saw you in that parking lot, standing up to that coward even though you were terrified, I saw my mother, he said quietly. I saw bravery and strength and someone who deserved better. And I thought, maybe this time I could help. Maybe this time I could be there for someone the way I wish someone had been there for her before she had to do it all alone. Tears stung Emma's eyes. She raised a good man. She tried. Alexander reached out and wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. So, dinner tonight? I make an excellent pasta carbonara. Despite everything, Emma laughed. You're not going to give up on this dinner thing, are you? Not even a little bit. The days that followed developed a rhythm that felt both strange and surprisingly natural. Emma worked remotely from the apartment. Alexander had an entire office she could use. while he came and went on mysterious business. Every evening, true to his word, he made them dinner. Sometimes they ate at the penthouse. Sometimes they went out to restaurants where everyone seemed to know Alexander and treat him with a deference that bordered on fear. They talked about everything and nothing. Emma learned that Alexander was 34, that he'd dropped out of Yale to take over the family business when his father died, that he spoke 4 languages fluently. He learned that Emma had always wanted to travel, but never had, that she loved old movies, that she'd dreamed of opening her own design studio someday. And slowly, carefully, they learned to be around each other. How Alexander always stood on the street side when they walked together. How Emma had nightmares sometimes and would emerge from her room shaking, and Alexander would make her tea without asking questions. How he never touched her without asking first, never crowded her space, always gave her room to breathe. On the 5th night, they were cooking together. Alexander had insisted she learn his carbonara recipe when Emma's phone rang. Unknown number. She froze, the knife she'd been using to cut vegetables clattering to the counter. "Don't answer it," Alexander said immediately, but Emma's finger was already moving toward the screen. She needed to know. Needed to face this. "Emma, baby, please." Marcus's voice came through the speaker. He was using someone else's phone. "We need to talk. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. I love you. Please, just..." Alexander plucked the phone from her hand and ended the call. Then he blocked that number too. "He's getting desperate," Alexander said calmly, but there was steel in his voice. "That's good. It means he's running out of options." "He's not going to stop," Emma whispered. "You don't know him like I do. He never gives up on anything he thinks belongs to him." "Then I'll make him understand that you don't belong to anyone but yourself." Alexander set the phone aside and turned to face her fully. "Emma, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She looked up at him, at this man who'd become her protector, and her friend, and maybe something more. "Yes." "Good, because tomorrow we're going to end this, permanently." The next morning, Alexander laid out his plan. He'd arranged a meeting, neutral territory, a cafe in Midtown during lunch rush, public, safe, witnesses everywhere. Marcus had agreed to meet Emma there, probably thinking it was his chance to talk her back into the relationship. "You're not going alone," Alexander said firmly when Emma started to protest. "I'll be there. You won't see me, but I'll be there. And so will some of my people. You're going to tell him it's over, Emma. Really over. And he's going to accept it. What if he doesn't?" Alexander's smile was cold. "Then I'll convince him." They arrived at the cafe separately. Emma went in first, her heart hammering, Alexander's sister's designer outfit like armor. She spotted Marcus immediately, sitting at a corner table looking haggard and angry. The fading bruise on her cheek throbbed as she approached. "Emma, thank God." Marcus stood, reaching for her, but she stepped back. "Don't touch me!" Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, then calculation. "Baby, please. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you, but I'm getting help. I'm seeing a therapist. I'm working on my anger. We can fix this." "There's nothing to fix," Emma said, her voice steadier than she felt. "We're done, Marcus. Completely done. I'm not coming back." "You don't mean that." He moved closer, his voice dropping to that familiar, manipulative tone. "You're upset. You're scared. I get it. But you love me. I know you do. We're meant to be together." "I was afraid of you," Emma corrected. "That's not love. That's survival." Marcus's expression hardened. "So that's it? You're just going to throw away 2 years? Because of one bad night?" "One bad night?" Emma's voice rose. "You put me in the hospital, Marcus. You controlled who I could see, where I could go, what I could wear. You made me afraid to come home to my own apartment. That's not one bad night." "That's abuse." People at nearby tables were starting to look over. Marcus's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Keep your voice down," he hissed. "You're making a scene." "I don't care anymore." and Emma realized it was true. She didn't care what he thought, didn't care about his reputation or his pride. We're done. Stay away from me. Stop calling. Stop texting. Stop showing up at my apartment. Your apartment? Marcus laughed bitterly. I paid half the rent on that place. I have a right. You have no rights where I'm concerned. Emma straightened her shoulders. If you contact me again, I'll get a restraining order. A restraining order? Marcus's voice went dangerous now. You think you can threaten me? You think you can just walk away from me? He grabbed her wrist, the same one he'd grabbed before, now wearing fading fingerprint bruises, and yanked her closer. You're mine, Emma. You'll always be. Let her go. Alexander appeared beside their table like a ghost, his presence suddenly commanding the entire cafe. He was dressed in a sharp navy suit, his ice blue eyes locked on where Marcus was gripping Emma's wrist. You, Marcus said, recognition and fear flickering across his face. I should have known. She's been with you, hasn't she? You think you can just steal someone's girlfriend? She's not your girlfriend. Alexander's voice was calm, measured, and absolutely lethal. She stopped being your girlfriend the moment you laid hands on her the first time. Now, I'm going to ask you once. Let her go. Marcus's grip tightened defiantly. And if I don't? What are you going to do, tough guy? We're in public. There are witnesses everywhere. You can't. Alexander moved so fast Emma barely saw it. One moment Marcus was gripping her wrist. The next he was on his feet with Alexander's hand wrapped around his throat, pressed back against the wall. Alexander had moved them away from the table, away from Emma, in one fluid motion. You're right, Alexander said quietly, his face inches from Marcus's. We are in public, so I'm going to say this very clearly where everyone can hear. You are going to leave Emma alone. You are going to delete her number, forget where she lives, forget she exists. Because if you don't, if you so much as think about her, I will make your life very, very difficult. Do you understand? You're threatening me, Marcus choked out. I'll call the police. I'll call them. Alexander released him slightly. Just enough for Marcus to breathe. And I'll tell them about the hospital visit 3 months ago, about the pattern of controlling behavior, about the text messages you've sent despite being asked to stop. Let's see who the police believe, a known abuser or a respected businessman protecting someone under his care. Emma saw the moment Marcus realized he'd lost. All the color drained from his face, and his body went slack. That's better. Alexander released him and stepped back, brushing imaginary lint from his suit. Now apologize to Emma properly. I'm sorry, Marcus muttered, not meeting Emma's eyes. Look at her when you apologize, Alexander commanded. Marcus raised his eyes to Emma's, and she saw real fear there for the first time. I'm sorry, Emma, for everything. I won't bother you again. Good. Alexander's hand settled on Emma's lower back, protective and possessive. Because Emma is under my protection now, and I take the safety of people under my protection very seriously. Isn't that right, gentlemen? Emma realized that several of the customers at nearby tables had stood up. Large men in nice suits, all watching Marcus with expressions that promised consequences if he made the wrong choice. Marcus looked around, seeming to understand for the first time that he was completely outmatched. He grabbed his jacket from the chair and practically ran out of the cafe. Silence fell for a moment, then Alexander guided Emma gently back to her chair. Are you all right? Emma nodded, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Is it really over? It's really over. Alexander crouched down beside her chair, taking her trembling hands in his. He's not going to bother you again, Emma. I promise. One of Alexander's men approached and said something in Italian. Alexander nodded, responding in the same language, then turned back to Emma. Let's go home, he said softly. Home. Not his apartment. Home. That evening, Emma found Alexander in his study, looking out over the city lights. She'd spent the afternoon processing everything, the confrontation, the realization that she was truly free, the way Alexander had protected her without hesitation. "Thank you," she said from the doorway. Alexander turned, his expression softening when he saw her. "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do." Emma crossed the room to him. "You didn't have to do any of this. The penthouse, the protection, confronting Marcus. You could have just driven me home that first night." "I couldn't." Alexander reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch gentle. "From the moment I saw you standing up to him in that parking lot, I couldn't just walk away. Emma, He paused, seeming to struggle with something. "I know the timing is complicated. I know you're recovering from something traumatic. But I need you to know that us, it's not just about protecting you." "What is it about?" Emma's heart was racing. "It's about the fact that I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since that first night. It's about how you make me laugh, how you're not afraid of me even though you should be, how you're strong and brave and beautiful." He cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone, careful of the fading bruise. "It's about how much I want to kiss you right now, if you'll let me." Emma's breath caught. She should say no, should tell him it was too soon, too fast, too complicated. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw something she'd never seen in Marcus's. Genuine care, respect. A question waiting for her answer instead of a demand. "Yes," she whispered. Alexander's kiss was nothing like she expected. It was soft, gentle, questioning. His hands cradled her face like she was something precious, breakable. When she made a small sound and pressed closer, his arms came around her, holding her against him, but never trapping her, never making her feel contained. It was perfect. It was terrifying. It was exactly what she needed. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alexander rested his forehead against hers. "Emma, I need to be honest with you about something." "Okay." Her heart sank. Here it came, the complication, the catch. "That first night when I accepted your ride request, it wasn't random. I saw your pickup location and your name, and I remembered seeing you at that restaurant before. I'd noticed you weeks ago having dinner alone, reading a book. You looked so peaceful, so content by yourself, and I thought you were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen." Emma pulled back slightly to look at him. "You saw me before?" "At Romano's. I eat there sometimes. You were at the bar, and you were reading Jane Austen and smiling at the pages like you and the author were sharing a private joke. I wanted to talk to you, but you seemed so perfectly self-contained that I didn't want to intrude. That was 2 months ago," Emma realized. "I used to go there after work sometimes, before Marcus insisted we eat together every night." "I know." Alexander's expression was rueful. "And when I saw your ride request from that same restaurant, I took it. I know it sounds crazy, but I had to know if you were really as interesting as you seemed. And then I found you in that parking lot, and you saw exactly how not peaceful my life was." Emma couldn't help but smile, even though there were tears in her eyes. "That's kind of stalkerish, you know." "I know, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry I was there when you needed help." He brushed away a tear that had escaped. "Emma, I'm in this. Whatever this is, I'm in it. If you'll have me." Emma thought about everything that had happened. A week ago, she'd been trapped in an abusive relationship with no clear way out. Now she was standing in a penthouse, being held by a dangerous, protective man who'd seen her at her worst and still looked at her like she hung the moon. It was crazy. It was too fast. It was probably a terrible idea. "I'm in too," she said. Alexander's smile was like sunrise breaking over the city. He kissed her again, deeper this time, and Emma let herself get lost in it. Lost in him. In this impossible, unexpected chance at happiness. Over the next few weeks, Emma slowly rebuilt her life, but this time with Alexander beside her. She started therapy to process the abuse, to learn to trust her own judgment again. Alexander paid for it without asking, waving off her protests. "Consider it rent," he said with a smile. and she couldn't argue anymore. She quit her job at the marketing firm and started building her own freelance design business. Her first client was one of Alexander's companies, though he insisted she earned it on merit after seeing her portfolio. Marcus disappeared from her life completely. The restraining order she filed was approved without contest. Alexander's lawyer, one of the best in the city, had handled everything. And every evening, Emma and Alexander had dinner together, sometimes at the penthouse, sometimes at restaurants where Alexander was clearly someone important. She learned more about his family business, about the legitimate empire his great-grandfather had built, and that Alexander was expanding. Real estate development, import companies, restaurants and hotels across the city. "We're clean now," he told her one night over wine. "Completely legitimate, but the reputation remains, and sometimes that's useful, for protecting people who need it." Emma learned that Alexander helped other women leave abusive situations, funded domestic violence shelters anonymously, used his influence to ensure certain cases got prosecuted. He was dangerous, yes, but he used that danger to protect people. "You're basically a vigilante in expensive suits," she teased him. "I prefer concerned citizen with resources," he replied, pulling her into his arms. 3 months after that first night, Alexander took Emma to meet his grandmother in Little Italy. The tiny, fierce woman looked Emma up and down, said something rapid in Italian to Alexander, then pulled Emma into a crushing hug. "She says you're perfect," Alexander translated, his eyes warm, "and that I'm not allowed to mess this up." "I told him the same thing," Emma said, making the old woman laugh. 6 months in, Emma moved her belongings from the spare room into Alexander's room. It felt right. It felt safe. It felt like home. "I love you," Alexander said one morning, wrapped around her in bed with the city waking up outside their windows. "I know it's fast, but I do. I love you, Emma. I love you too." And she meant it. This wasn't like what she'd had with Marcus. That had been fear dressed up as love, control masquerading as care. This was real. "You saved me that night." "No." Alexander kissed her forehead. "You saved yourself. You called that car. You left him. You stood up to him. I just made sure you didn't have to do it alone." 1 year after the night they met, Alexander took Emma back to Romano's, the same restaurant where it had all begun. They had a table this time, not the bar, and Emma wore a blue dress that Alexander said made her eyes look like summer sky. They were lingering over dessert when Alexander reached across the table and took her hand. "Emma, I need to ask you something." "Okay." Her heart started to race. Was he moved to Italy with me? That was not what she'd expected. "What?" "For 3 months," Alexander continued. "Maybe 6. I'm opening a new hotel in Florence, and I need to be there to oversee it. Come with me. We'll explore the country, eat amazing food. I'll teach you Italian. You can work on your design business from anywhere." He squeezed her hand. "Come have an adventure with me, Emma." "Yes," she said without hesitation. A year ago, she'd been afraid to leave her apartment. Now she was saying yes to Italy. Yes, absolutely. Alexander's smile was devastating. "Good, because I already bought the tickets." "You did not." "I did." He pulled out his phone and showed her the confirmation. "I was going to beg if you said no, but I hoped you'd trust me by now." "I do trust you." Emma looked at this man who'd changed her life completely. "Alexander, marry me." Emma's breath stopped. "What?" "Marry me." Alexander stood up and moved around the table, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Other diners were starting to notice, but he only had eyes for her. "I know it's been a year. I know some people would say it's too fast, but I knew the first night, Emma. I knew when I saw you standing up to him in that parking lot. I knew when you laughed in my car. I knew every single day since then. Marry me. Come to Italy as my fiancé. Come home as my wife." He opened the box, revealing a stunning diamond ring that caught the light like captured stars. Emma felt tears streaming down her face. A year ago, she'd been broken and afraid. Tonight she was whole and brave and absolutely certain. "Yes," she said. "Yes, Alexander, yes." The restaurant erupted in applause as Alexander slipped the ring on her finger and pulled her into his arms. He kissed her there in the middle of Romano's, where it had all begun, and Emma kissed him back with all the joy and hope and love in her heart. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret this," Alexander murmured against her lips. "I know," Emma said. And she did. Because she'd learned something important over the past year. Real love didn't control. It freed you. Real love didn't break you down. It built you up. Real love wasn't finding someone to complete you. It was finding someone who celebrated the person you already were and wanted to be. "I love you," she told him. "I love you more," he replied and kissed her again. Later that night, back in their penthouse overlooking the glittering city, Emma stood at the windows with Alexander's arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. She looked at the diamond on her finger, at their reflection in the glass, at the city that had given her back her life. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for that night. For every night since." "Thank you for taking a chance on your Uber driver," Alexander replied, and she could hear the smile in his voice. Emma laughed and turned in his arms to face him. "Best ride of my life." "It's only just beginning," Alexander promised, and kissed his future wife as the city lights sparkled around them like stars brought down to earth. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Emma believed in happy endings. Not because someone had saved her, but because she'd saved herself and found someone who wanted to walk beside her into whatever came next. That was real love. That was real strength. That was everything she'd never known she deserved until the night a mysterious Uber driver had stepped between her and her worst nightmare and shown her what it meant to be truly protected, truly valued, truly loved.